Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Real People. As we begin our new year, we're going to be talking about the things that are important to me. And one of those things is spirituality. So we're going to start our new year, 2020, talking about all things spiritual. And so, again, my name is Dr. Caroline Bethea Jones, and I am here with my guest, Mr. Basui. Can you pronounce your last name for me?
Basui Mshu Nikaamen.
Mshu Nikaamen. Okay, see, that wasn't so bad. I actually felt like I said that right? Okay. So, first of all, I'm happy to have you here because you and I always have great conversations.
Yes.
And we always have conversations that are of the spiritual nature because you are a very spiritual man.
Right. So
I'm a very spiritual woman. And every time we get in the same room together,
we end up connecting on that vibe, you know.
Absolutely. So, just for the sake of the audience and people who are listening to us, I'm often asked, is there a difference between religion and spirituality? Like being spiritual and being religious. I think there is, but I want to know, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's a difference between being spiritual and being religious? And if you think there is, then let's talk about what those differences are.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that spirituality is something that is afforded to everybody. You know, anyone can practice it. I mean, it's when you open your door, when you wake up in the morning, you know, you can practice spirituality without being confined to a certain protocol. The fact that there's no cookie cutter approach to practicing spirituality. It's all about how you feel, you know, and what drives you to do certain things or to manipulate certain modems to actually help drive your spirit. You know, that's not written in books. Okay. You know, these are things that just drive you to say, well, you know what? I read about or I heard about that wearing a certain color on a certain day can actually help embolden my spirit, you know, or doing something at a certain time. Yeah. Right. So there's no protocol to spirituality. Yeah. It's pretty much how you feel.
Okay.
You know,
and
it's
religion.
It's not.
And compare that with religion. What's your definition of religion? What is that to you?
It's a little more confined. There is more of a script.
Okay.
With religion that you have to pretty much stick to. It's not as free as practicing spirituality. You're usually in somebody's, practicing underneath somebody's circumference, right? It's circumscribed to something, you know, somebody's way of teaching or way of doing.
It's interesting that you use the word free. Interesting, because we're going to talk about the religion or your spiritual base, but in Christianity, one of the things that is very prominent in Christianity is freedom. What did Jesus came to set you free?
Right.
To free you from the constraints of sin or the worldly things. The whole idea of it is freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And you and I, we had a conversation not that long ago, and I told you that I was reading a book by James Cone, I think it was James Cone, I think his name is. Okay. And it was called Black Liberation, where Christianity and Black liberation come together. And the reason why I was interested in it is because the whole purpose, in my opinion, of spirituality is a freedom. And the whole reason why I disengaged from the church was actually a lack of freedom. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting that you would use those words, freedom.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, when you're in a box, it's the feeling that your freedom is being infringed upon, actually. You know, naturally, that's just who we are. We want to feel like we can go out anywhere and have the liberty to do what we want to do, you know, the way that our spirit moves us.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way that spirit works. You know, although it's confined in a physical body, but spirit is everywhere.
Right.
You know, and so spirit is saying just use your body as a vessel so I can still, you know, intermingle with the spirit in the outer world, you know, outside of the body.
Right.
You know, so when you get into the concept that we're just the vessel, you know, because the spirit within us wants to have that interplay between the spirits outside of us. So, I mean, that's where the freedom comes in.
Right.
You know, and your spirit just wants the freedom to do that.
Okay.
And so confining yourself to boxes and protocols and circumscribed, you know, doctrines, it's kind of restricting, going against what your spirit actually wants to do.
Right.
Because sometimes you'll have people with different agendas that kind of contradict what it is that you should be doing.
Right.
You know, there's certain boxes who don't feel that. Well, we'll get into this probably a little bit later, but I want to throw in a topic like the pineal gland.
Yeah.
You know, they may not feel that doing things to decalcify the pineal gland is important to what we're doing, you know, to their agenda.
Again, I don't. You know that I don't believe in coincidences. We've had this conversation about coincidences,
right?
And coincidentally, yesterday I was actually studying the pineal gland.
Oh, okay.
It came into my spirit, and I kind of, you know, wanted to.
So we just connect.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
what I'm trying to
on bases.
That is what I'm trying to say.
We got the keywords down, you know. Okay.
Every time we get together, that's what it becomes.
Right,
and I'm telling you, I don't
right.
believe in coincidences. So I believe that things happen for a purpose. Yeah. And I didn't know we were going to talk about this today because we're freewheeling here. This is real talk, real people. We don't water nothing down. So I didn't know that was going to come up, but it was very heavy on my mind yesterday as I was doing the research on. I really wanted to know more about its function, why we don't know anything about it. Why don't we know anything about this? You know, this function that we have within our brain.
Right.
And so can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I'm not an expert. I'm still doing my studying.
You know what the funny thing is with that is what we call spirituality, what we practice is spirituality, and we taking this back to the ancient, you know, to our ancestors. We practice it as spirituality. We had names for the creator, different names for the creator.
Yes.
We understood that there was a creator that created this thing called creation, you know?
Right.
So we always understood it as a divinity. That's something divine that we really can't conceptualize fully. But we understood the tenets of it. You know what I mean? Why it's there. You know, the way we should actually practice certain things to make it a little bit more tangible to us. You know? That was spirituality to us. Right. So the pineal gland, I mean, we understood that we were tapping into something, you know, that opened the world to us, which is what now, and there are other concepts too, but just with the pineal gland. So fast forward to today, we have science. All science is a justification of what our ancestors already knew.
Right. I totally agree with that.
You know, exactly. Science is the study of spirituality. It's the study of spirit. So when we say concepts like spirit, you know, people who study science, it's energy. You know, they call it energy.
Yes.
And it's the same concept. You know, it can't be created, destroyed. It just turns into different forms.
Right. And
so when you understand spirituality and you're practicing it and you get into terms like reincarnation, that's what that's talking about. You know, it's just talking about the soul doesn't get destroyed. It just goes into another form. And so, yeah, with the pineal gland, they're just now kind of figuring out data, but they're just now figuring out data about melanin. You know, every year they're coming out with more and more data about what melanin actually does. And I think that the latest that they've actually figured out about the pineal gland was its releasing of DMT, which actually the pituitary gland that's the one that really needs to be discussed because it's the pituitary gland that makes the pineal gland release the DMT. Okay. And so they're just now learning about the release of DMT, bringing you into a dream state that allows you to go into meditation a little quicker and stay in it for a longer period of time. And these are what our ancestors were doing.
I was going to say,
you know, they were. This is how they were able to accomplish these unimaginable feats. Right. You know, but they didn't understand like they were tapping into because they weren't doing the science the way it's done today. They don't have the technology to do it the way it was, but they were meditating on a lot of this stuff. Right. You know, a lot of this stuff was intuitive. You know, on the actual way that we should be moving in this universe. You know?
No, I know.
So
I've been listening to mythology. I have a audiobook of like 120 hours of all the different mythologies, and I'm nowhere near finished. But the lecture on the Egyptian mythology was so enlightening.
Oh.
So enlightening. And people hesitate a little bit before they want to call Christianity mythology or Judaism mythology.
Right.
We're going to touch on a lot of things that's going to really make people mad. But basically that's what it is.
Right.
And when you think about all of the current religions that we have today that are just updated versions of the ones that existed thousands and thousands of years prior to their existence.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me what mankind, what we envision in our mind to be what is God and what is God-like.
Right.
You know a lot about the Egyptian spirituality,
right? I'm gaining more insight into it, as I go along in my studies. So, by the way, just to kind of introduce myself, I am a student. I would call myself a student and a practitioner of the ancient Egyptian spiritual system, or the ancient African spiritual system.
Okay.
That's what we like to say because, they're still trying to separate Egypt from Africa.
Okay.
Even today, you go into most of the museums you go to, just name a museum, the major ones. Egypt is usually on the third floor. Mm-hmm. Africa will be on the first floor, on the first wing. They always separate Egypt and Africa.
Yeah.
When you go to the museums. The ones in Brooklyn, Metropolitan Museum, the Brooklyn Museum.
Right.
I'm not too sure of the museums out here in Jersey, so don't hold me against it.
Right.
I know I've been to a couple.
Well, let's talk about Egyptian spirituality and African spirituality.
Right.
There's a difference between the two, or no? They're the same.
Well, they've all come from
the same
Egyptian spirituality. The concepts are all of the same. Mm-hmm. You may just have different deities.
Right.
But the energies, the way that they work with their energies is still pretty much the same.
Now
the way that you would work with them.
Right. Now the Egyptian deities, is that the Isis and Horus, or am I?
Isis and Horus is the Greek terminology.
Oh, the Greek. Okay.
That would be Set in Heru.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Because I know that they're one of the things that I've learned in my studies, as you know, that I am a avid studier as well, is that a lot of these stories they're the same stories, but being told by a different name.
The Bible is the same.
It's the same thing. It's the same story. It's the same story, and each generation of scholars and philosophers refer to these stories by different names.
Right.
And what happens when you are just an individual such as ourselves, and you have not been learned in philosophy or mythology or any of the religions, you don't have a realization that these are all the same stories.
All of the same stories.
All of the same stories. And that's really what changed my whole mindset as I began to study. Because even though I was studying Christianity, you can't just study Christianity without studying other things, in my opinion, because if you're going to be a person who is searching for something, you're going to be uncovering a whole lot of stuff.
Right. And usually some of those other things will help put in perspective what it is that you're trying to study. For the fact that you just said, they are all pretty much relating to the same thing.
Right. And so that's what ended up happening. I started to uncover a whole lot of other stuff that led me to other stuff, that led me to other stuff, that led me to other stuff. And before you know it, I was really studying.
Open a Pandora's box.
Right. And then I started saying, hold up, wait a minute. Mm. Why does this sound like the same story that I read over here? Why is this the same over here? Why?
Right.
And then I started saying to myself, these are the same stories.
Right. And the reason why it is because, universal laws and principles don't change. They are what they were when creation started.
Exactly.
So it's just the way different cultures conceptualize the way creation happened. They're all telling the story of whether it's the pre-created state, creation, the afterlife, the way that the cosmic forces are intertwined with each other, and the way they influence us. Those are all, pretty much the tenets of what they're telling us.
And physics and science, as you mentioned earlier, actually say the same thing as well.
And all they're doing is confirming it.
All they're doing is confirming it.
What
exactly.
We've been saying.
Yeah. So tell us about your spiritual journey. Where did it begin? How did you get to where you are right now? Was it something that you knew right from the beginning you were going to study this, or did you start with Christianity like I did? Did you go in through Christianity, or were you never really?
Yeah, my parents were, for lack of better terms, I would say holy rollers. They weren't really they weren't never really into the church. My grandmother was.
Okay.
So she would make us go.
Okay.
Our parents would make us go through our grandmother,
Okay, all right.
through our grandmother's wishes. So sometimes we would go to Cornerstone, mega church in Brooklyn. So we would spend some Sundays in Cornerstone. We did the Bible studies, the run with the Bible studies. But it never, to my soul, it never really resonated.
Okay.
It never really resonated to my soul. A lot of times when I was in church, I felt like just kind of going through the motions. It's just what it is. It's Sunday morning. It's what we did. We're a black family.
Yeah.
We put on our best.
That's what we do.
We go out to church,
right.
and we sing some hymns. But I don't know. It never really stuck. Something that never really stuck to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the feeling of feeling confined, but.
But that's just the church environment. But what about the Bible itself? Because where I agree with you, I never felt a connection to the church environment. I always felt trapped.
Right.
Always felt, like you said, confined. I never got my answers answered. I never got my questions answered. It was always a big runaround. But I need to understand this. It was never about me understanding it. But it wasn't until I began to
actually pick the book up.
Right, read the Bible
and
myself.
And that's the thing. With me, I've always affiliated the Bible with the church.
Okay.
So if I wasn't going to church,
you wasn't going to pick up
most likely I wasn't picking up the Bible, So, I guess that it kind of got lost in my whole way of conceptualizing church and said,
You wasn't at least curious to find out what was going on in that book? It was my curiosity that made me delve deeper. I always, and you might can say the same thing. I feel like I was always spiritual, and we opened up with you saying that. I think all of us are spiritual. We all,
right.
I think we're all born with this idea that there's someone greater than us. I am here because something or some deity created me.
Right.
So I never had a problem with spiritual, understanding that there was a God. And knowing that I wanted to discover who I was and who I was in accordance to this God. So my curiosity led me to pick up the book for myself and to read. It was all I knew at the time. So picking up the Bible was something that was going to bring me closer to discovering who God was. That was just my way of learning about the God that I always knew. And when I tell people I always knew that there was a God, they're like, oh no, that was indoctrinated into you. You were brainwashed. And I hate it when people tell me that I was brainwashed.
Right.
That's just the stock answer that people want to say, oh, you've just been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed. But no,
that's usually people's go-to.
That's their go-to.
Right.
There was always something inside of me.
But
always.
Dr. Jones, and this is why I always say that practicing spirituality is probably the boldest thing that you can do. And it's sad because it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't, but it's very emboldening, but it should be the ideal way of living. Everybody should be inspired to want to raise their awareness to their higher level of consciousness, and tap into their higher selves, and escape the fetters of everyday living, and those fetters are usually from your ego, which doesn't allow you to really enjoy or get the total experience of life. That should be the ideal way of living, but because of the society we live in, we live in a society that tells you how success should be based upon. And, they usually tell you it's based upon all the things that you should be doing to live a spiritual life. You know, all the things that you shouldn't be doing. I'm sorry.
Should not be.
Right.
The focus is on what you should not do.
Right. Because the focus of success in this society is all about external things. You know, the accumulation and the value that you put into that accumulation of external things. So we go through our whole lives that way. You know, and never worry about actually looking into where we're supposed to really practice spirituality.
Right.
And so my teacher, he always says, that I'm a recovering addict of Western male domination. You know, just like how an alcoholic he's still an alcoholic.
Right.
You know what I mean? You even if you're 20 years removed from drinking one drink of alcohol, you still have to remind yourself, I'm a recovering addict of this, because there's always that moment where I may feel the worst in my life, down in the dumps, as they would say. And I can get tempted and go right back into that life. So you always need something to keep reminding you that I'm not there anymore, but there's a possibility that I can go back there.
That you can go back there. Right.
So I just got off track of what we were just saying. Wow.
Okay, so we were talking about...
I'm getting ready to bring it back home. Bring it back home. So go back to the point that
I think we were talking mostly about... I don't think that I was brainwashed into believing that there was a God. I always knew there was a God. Always. It was always in my spirit. And it wasn't, and again, that's the reason why I wanted to learn more, because something inside of me said that there were more. I never was without that feeling, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, and I actually, that's why I brought that up, because when you are in that, you're in the trenches of just going along with a system.
Right.
You know, you just go with the motions. And, you know, a lot of people are walking around, they say they believe in a higher purpose, they believe in a God, but a lot of the times it's really programmed, you know, words that are coming out in a programmed manner. Like, do they really believe in this? Or is this that, you know, this is what this system kind of told us to say?
I think you could, but I think you can tell.
Somebody talks to us about spirituality.
But I think you can tell those who were programmed and those who are. When I love the way you opened this segment talking about spirituality, because it is a freedom. It is I exist. I know I exist. There is nothing to be said about me not knowing that I exist. You know you exist, right? You know you exist. We know we exist. And in that same vein, I know God exists. Now, it may not be God the way you see God. It may not be God the way you see God. But I think we all have our own vision of who God is and what God is. And I just don't think that one person can pinpoint to me what my experience is. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you can tell me what I'm experiencing. I think what I'm experiencing is part of my makeup,
part of your journey,
and part of my journey.
You know, like I said, spirituality there's no cookie cutter approach to
right.
it. You know, you practice it as you go through your life.
Right.
You know, if you have to readjust, and this is why, you know, in my shrine we call ourselves spiritual warriors in training. Okay. Because your whole life you go through training. Right. You know, but you understand that there's a spiritual war going on. You understand that there's what we subscribe to anyway is that in every human being, there's a war between the ego and the higher consciousness. Right. And you know, you've always seen it in the shows where, you know, one show you have the devil, the other show you have the angel telling you what you should do. And so, I think the main thing that we need to understand about that is that we're playing on the ego's playing field. Like, this is physical reality that we live in. This physical realm, this is the ego's playing field. Because from the time that we're babies, we go through life. This is how we perceive life, through our senses. We start touching things, feeling things, smelling things, hearing things. And then that gets entered into our mind, and our mind conceives what it is that our senses just picked up as reality. You know, so, and that's the ego. You know, those are the components of the ego, you know, the mind and the senses. So we start out in life through the ego. that doesn't have to be cultivated. You know what I mean? Higher consciousness is the one that has to be cultivated.
Okay.
And most people are going through lives just through the ego. You know, they aren't really getting into a lot of people without instruction are not just by themselves trying to do the things to lift their awareness to the higher levels of consciousness and tap into that higher self.
Right.
So, you know, that's one of the main tenets that we subscribe to. And that you really need to understand is that you're automatically at a disadvantage, you know, because you have to cultivate the thing to make that ego submit, you know, to the will of what you actually know is righteous.
Right.
You know, because the ego is going to make you do whatever it feels is the adequate response for whatever situation you're in. And sometimes it might not be the most favorable one.
Right.
You know, but the ego is all about survival. When he says, No,
finish.
Yeah, so you make that deal with the ego, and they call it the deal with the devil, you know, but that's what it is.
That's why I wanted you to finish.
Oh, okay.
Because I wanted to say, let's talk about the ego as compared with the devil.
Right.
And so let me just let him finish.
Yes. But keep in mind, too, it's not the ego, it's the uncontrolled ego.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what does the devilish stuff, you know, because the ego can actually, it's there to work for you, you know, and so for the fact that we go through life through our ego, you know, and if you haven't cultivated your higher consciousness, in that sense, your ego is like your default way of going through reality.
Okay.
So, like I said, if all else doesn't work, if you don't do all of the other things to cultivate that higher way of going through life, then your ego is there for you. And your ego says to you, look, don't worry about all of that other stuff. You know, don't worry about being your higher self or trying to cultivate great character. I got you. I'm going to get you through life. You know, just hop on my back and we'll ride through life. Because the ego is all about survival. It knows survival. Okay. It says, look, you know, if it's conditions are too cold outside, we're going to go find some heat. If it's too hot outside, we'll find some, you know, place to cool off at. Right. So I got you, don't worry. And so that's the deal, you know, that we end up making with the ego. But the thing about the ego is the house of desires and need and wants. So the ego says to you, once you make that deal, it's going to say to you, well, okay, I got you, right? But I need you to do this for me. I need you to react in whatever way that I feel is appropriate in any situation that we're in. I need you to respond that way. Deal? And yeah, most of us say, yeah, no problem. That's where the wars come. You know, that's where and so the ego will take you from a simple argument with your friends to two countries bombing each other for no reason. You know, or the ego will say, look, like I said, the ego is all about desires. It always has one for you. The ego will say, I want that piece of land over there, and there are people on it. I want you to go get it by any means necessary, because that's what the ego is all about. And so, hence the destruction, you know, the slaying of people, the raping and pillaging of people to get that land. But now that's the out of control ego, because this person hasn't done what they should have to control that reservoir of desires that the ego keeps pulling from. It's always going to pull from it. But that's why I say the whole thing about we're spiritual warriors in training. Because now what we have to do is to realize that, it's the movie New Jack City, where who's it? Morgan,
Ice-T?
Not Ice-T. Mario Van Peebles. Yeah. When he says to Ice-T, he says, in order to defeat Nino Brown, we need New Jack cops for New Jack criminals, right? And that's the thing that we have to understand when it comes to this game about the ego and the higher consciousness. See, the ego, and that's just the way life is. Life always, it gets stronger and more sophisticated with challenges. And the ego indulges in those challenges. And so we have to understand that we always have to come up with stronger and more sophisticated techniques to combat these stronger and more sophisticated challenges. Like your intervention, the way that you combat that should always tailor the scope of what it is that's trying to destroy you. You should be able to cover all angles. You know, it shouldn't be a 50, half approach to it.
Right.
It should be an approach that says, well, look, it's coming at me 100%. I need to go back at it 100%. And, understanding that, then we'll learn that from doing that, we can actually get the ego to submit to our will. And another thing to understand about that is we should never say to ourselves that at any one point in time, even though I might right now have my ego under wraps, I should never feel that at any one point in time that I have my ego subdued for good.
Okay.
Because you never have it subdued for good. Like I said, it's always coming up with something newer and stronger.
Okay.
And that's what the whole.
That's where you lost your train of thought at, because you was talking about your teacher.
Yes. It clicked to me when I.
Yes.
It clicked to me.
So you did bring it back home. Yes,
right,
you did. You brought it back home. Now let's talk about higher consciousness, because so many people can't get there. And even I struggle with trying to reach my highest self, because there are many levels that you have to go through.
I'm still getting at it too.
Yeah.
I know I am, And, like I say, life it's all about a training. It's a training, and because you have to constantly keep reinventing yourself, what it is that usually, what it is that is preventing us from getting to our higher selves is that ego.
Yeah. But it seems like the hardest thing for us to do is to kill the ego, because you're not wrong. And in fact, every single religion that I've studied speaks about that. Killing the ego, this is where the whole Christianity, the whole baptism is about that. It's about dying to self. You're dying to your ego. You're dying to dying to your ego, and then rising. That's the higher consciousness. As you raise your consciousness, you're resurrecting your highest self.
Right.
So the whole idea of baptism was built around that whole idea of dying to your ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the ego is in the story. There's a story in the ancient Egyptian saga, the story of Asar, Aset, and Heru, and this is what they call Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And that's what the story is all about. The story is about finding our higher consciousness and using that to defeat the ego, so we can get back to our higher self. And real quick, before I really get into the story, I just want to say, and we were talking about this before, that the characters in the story are what they call the deities. We call them Necharu.
Okay.
Right? That would be the term for the faculties of the creator, because they call the creator Necher. That was the name. That's how they conceptualized the creator, as Necher. And of course, we know the Necher is the one in all. Necher is not just the creator, but Necher is creation.
Right.
It is actually an ancient Egyptian passage that said in the what they call the Book of the Dead, the Pertim Heru, where Necher is saying, I created myself, then I threw myself into creation.
Yes.
Meaning that I am everything that exists in creation. So the Necharu are the faculties of the Necher. Just as the word Necharu comes from Necher. The Necher, the so-called gods and goddesses, come from the Necher. And so when we understand the story of whether it's Asar, Set, and Heru, or any of the other mythological stories, because it is a mythological story, right? And these are mythological characters. So we need to understand first that when you see these characters interact with each other, their relationships in these stories are telling us how we are supposed to be harnessing and developing certain mental faculties in our lives.
Right.
That's what they're saying in these stories.
Yes.
They're not telling us that these are people that we should aspire to be like.
Right.
No, they're telling you, that's what you need to do.
Yes.
So in the story of Asar, Set, and Heru, it was Set. Set was the Necher, who was portrayed as the ego. Set is the one that chops up. Are you familiar with the story?
I am familiar. Yes, I remember. I just heard the story from the mythology. So yes.
All right, I don't want to ramble by telling the story.
No. Okay, I'm familiar with the story.
So So Set is the one that chops up Asar, right? He lays up this ruse to first kill him. He gets him put in a coffin, and from there Asar suffocates. Now remember, Asar represents the higher consciousness.
Right.
I mean, not the higher consciousness, the higher self.
Right.
Asar is the higher self.
Well, what's the difference between the higher self and the higher consciousness?
Well, the higher, it's what's the saying?
Because I was using them interchangeably, but
so what they say, the way to get to the Father is through the Son.
Right. Okay.
Basically, that's the point between the higher self and the higher consciousness. To get to your higher consciousness is to get to your higher self. You have to first find your higher consciousness.
Okay. All right.
That's your highest awareness.
Okay.
Right? To defeat the ego. First, you got to defeat that ego. That's through the higher consciousness.
Okay.
And then, that's usually in more of a physical sense, right? Because now you're just aware of reality to the highest extent, you know. And then once you can do that, then you're able to, what we talked about before, eradicate yourself of all of the fetters of life, all of the things that are preventing you from fully experiencing life in its totality. And that's your higher self. Your higher self allows you to experience life not just on the physical realm, but on the subtle realm. You know, your higher self will allow you to appreciate the divine intent behind a situation and not just focus on the situation, which is what a lot of us do.
Right.
You know, so, and that's, you know, where you get the whole concept of giving thanks, of gratitude. Because gratitude connects you back with the divine intent behind the situation. But so the ego chops up the higher self, disperses it all throughout the land. Now it's Asar's wife, Aset, is the one that goes on the journey to find all the pieces.
Yes.
To find the pieces. Not only Aset, but Aset has a best friend called Nebuchadnezzar, who goes along the journey with her. So these are giving us life lessons right here.
Right.
And now Aset represents wisdom and devotional love. So right there, the story is telling you, in order to really go on a search to your mission to find your higher self, you have to have wisdom, meaning you have to read a lot and understand, get an understanding from not just maybe a box, but from all different aspects of the world. You have to be wise that way. And you have to have a devotional love, you know, something that keeps you steadfast on your journey. And so that's who Aset was. And so Nebuchadnezzar, her best friend, the message is that to help support us on our journey, we always need someone. You know, we always need someone to help support us on our journey. We can't do this by ourselves.
For accountability, for support,
for accountability,
for encouragement,
support,
for motivation.
Right, because we drive off of each other.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, I can see that.
Right, so you should always have that. And so they go to, let me make sure I'm getting it. Right, so now that Aset has Nebuchadnezzar, they go on a journey. They go find the pieces, put them back together. And this is where one of the stories in the Bible kind of, you know, parallel with the ancient Egyptian story. So what it is this is where the whole Immaculate Conception comes from, because once they put all of the pieces together, now Aset turns into a dove, a bird, and she flaps her wings, and from there the spirit of Heru now is born, you know, out of the pieces of Asar. Right. You know, they actually created a fake phallus, you know, for copulation. And so Heru is now born. And then the phallus gets thrown in the river. Well, actually, that was before the phallus gets thrown in the river. But that's how Heru is born. Now that your higher consciousness is born, you know, through wisdom and devotional love to your task. The thing about Heru and Set, Heru doesn't defeat Set. Heru can't defeat Set in his physical form, because Set is brute force. That's what your ego is. It's brute force. But they have many battles. Heru may win a couple of battles, but he'll never defeat Set through brute force. And that's what Heru would always try to use. It's not until Heru gets the support, or not the support, the instruction from entering another character called Jehuti. Jehuti represents divine wisdom. And Jehuti tells Heru, you're not going to beat Set through physical combat. Obviously, you're not, because you haven't won. So you have to consort all the other Necharu in a court of law. So they go to bring their case to the Necharu in a court of law. And that's how Heru actually ends up defeating Set. Right? Not through brute force, but through intellect. Divine intelligence.
Right.
And so the story is telling us these are all of the things that we need to defeat our ego. It's not going to take any physical restraining to do that. You can't do it.
You can't do it. And surprisingly, the Bible speaks of such stories as well.
Right.
As I'm listening to you tell the story of the Egyptian mythology story, it brings to mind many of the biblical stories. It's just that the biblical concept has been torn into so many pieces. You got those who are literalists. They believe the Bible literally. Right. And then you have the ones who are Gnostic, who were all about the wisdom and the knowledge of the stories. I have always been attracted to the stories, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this out loud so that people can hear me.
Revelation.
But I'm probably more Gnostic than I am anything else.
All right.
It's where, like you said, you resonated with what is it? The ancient Egyptian, African Egyptian spirituality. The more I study Gnostic, the more I see that's where and it's so funny because
the Gnostics look more at the metaphor of what's being said than the actual personalization of the story.
Yes.
They didn't personalize. They understood that these are messages that are about me.
Yes.
About what I need to do.
Yes. And for me, I understand the stories to be not literal.
Right.
But again, I try to be careful when I'm talking to different individuals, because I do understand that there's
we live in a world where everybody goes by the script.
Yes,
and the script is to say that, this is what it is. My pastor told me I have to listen to what it says, and everybody talks to the script. Everybody's really bought into the script.
Right.
It takes special people to step outside of the box.
I tried to be part of the script. I did. I tried to do everything like it was written.
Right.
But again, it just wasn't.
But when it doesn't feel right.
It didn't feel right.
To your
it didn't feel right to my soul, to my spirit, and so. But I'm grateful for the journey that I'm on, because what I say to everyone is that this is your journey. This is your story.
Right.
Nobody can write your story.
Right.
You have to write your own story.
Right.
This is you guys are players in my story.
Right.
But you're not writing my story. I'm writing my story.
Right.
And so I have to be true to myself. And that is what I encourage in our women's ministry. We encourage that. We do not define you. We do not tell you what you're supposed to think or believe.
Right.
I teach what I have in front of me. But at no point are you beholden to my ideas or the ideas that come forth from any place.
Right.
I'm hoping that you're going to use your own mind.
I say, the best, look, the best teacher is what you're saying. The best teacher is the guider. Not the one that, the traditional sense of a teacher, somebody standing in front of a chalkboard, disseminating knowledge to you. It's not how knowledge.
No.
That's not how you bring knowledge out of you. That's actually the etymology of the word educate, right? To pull out of you. You have to pull the information out of you. We have it all in. Look, what they call energy, we call spirit, right?
Yeah.
Energy is information.
Yeah.
Information lives in energy. So why can't you meditate or practice other modems that will help you bring that energy that has that information out of you? We all have the ability to do it. But like I said, we're so bought into a script, that focuses on some type of external salvation, when really our salvation is what we can pull out of us, and liberate our own minds. So, it's something that I think we really have to. Being mindful is naive. It's something that we really have to be honest about. You know, about when it comes to religion and spirituality. You know, we have to just want. Maybe it'll take a miraculous waking up and say, look, I'm not buying into the script anymore. You know, I understand what really needs to be done for myself. That,
Right.
like you said, I am on a journey. I was born into this life with my own personal journey.
Yeah.
You know, and no one can teach me how to navigate that. You know, only I can navigate that road for myself.
You're not a puppet. It's not like it's not like somebody's pulling the strings and helping you walk. I mean,
No.
I got to get through this life by myself.
No, exactly.
I came into this world by myself.
Right.
I'm going to leave this world by myself.
Right.
I need to figure it out.
That's right.
I need to walk this journey and figure out life.
That's right. That's
You know?
right. And, you know, it's not being harsh, but it can be your spouse of 50 years. They have their own journey. You have your own journey. It can be your children. You know, I know sometimes we feel a need to want to, you know, guide them through, control them through life and tell them what, you know, and which is good. You know, we give them the best advice, tell them what's good and what's bad and what to avoid and what to, you know, seek shelter in.
Well, we already established that there are universal laws in place. There are some things that are just, it's got to happen that way.
Right.
I mean, I don't think neither one of us are suggesting that you do whatever you want to the point in which everybody is, you know what I mean?
No.
But,
well, and that's why we had, you know, in ancient Egypt, they had Ma'at. You know, ancient Egypt was run off of the.
All right, let's talk about
system
that.
of
Let's
the
talk
Ma'at,
about that.
You know, yeah. Well, you know, Ma'at was First of all, Ma'at is a threefold concept, right? Ma'at was a netcher, or netchert, which is the feminine version of netcher. Ma'at was a cosmic force, and then Ma'at is a, moral code of ethics.
Okay.
So these are the three ways that you can look at Ma'at.
Okay.
So, you know, as a netcher, Ma'at was a mythological character in a story that helped tell a story of not only the pre-created state, creation, the way that energies interplay with each other, and the way they influence our lives. Ma'at was just one of those characters that did that.
Okay.
Now, what part did she play? So now we'll talk about the Ma'at as the cosmic force. So as a cosmic force, Ma'at is the force of regularity, or should I say the faculty of the creator that regulates everything in creation, that is responsible for the regularity of everything in creation. Our heartbeat, you know, whether from the planets to the smallest atoms, everything has a regular rhythm. You know, so in that fact, Ma'at is the rhythm of creation.
Okay.
And she is the reason why everything must have this rhythm, and if there's any interruption in the rhythm, chaos would ensue. And, you know, we look at chaos as something catastrophic, but it can range from something catastrophic to the common cold, you know, but it's just that it's something that needs to be on a regular rhythm that just can't afford that interruption. So Ma'at would be that. So in a way, Ma'at is the law of the universe.
Okay.
The law of the cosmos.
Right.
And Ma'at has 7 principles that keeps that regularity going.
What are those
You know,
7 principles?
and so one of those principles is the principle of harmony. Everything must move in a harmonious rhythm.
Okay.
And that's the law of interdependency. We all depend on each other, right? It's like a team, you know, like you get a football team. The quarterback can't do what he's supposed to do if the offensive line isn't working right, you know? And just like in any other sport, every player relies on the other player.
Everybody's
so if one
playing
is
their
off
part.
keel, right? If one is off keel, that throws the whole chemistry off.
Okay.
So, you know, that's what the harmony of the universe is all about. Everything
and we
working
see
in
that.
synchronicity.
And we see that in
just
our planets.
off of the rotation in the
Yes.
cosmos, you know, everything's rotating.
Yes.
Same way, they're following each other, right? In lockstep with each other. Order, right? Ma'at says, well, in order to keep this regularity going, I gotta make sure that there's an order here. Whether it's on a human level, the higher life forms and the lower life forms, they shouldn't be switching order. We all feed off of each other. The larger life feeds off of the smaller life, and the life that's larger than that depends off of that, smaller life. And as the bodies get larger, they depend on the bodies that predate them. You know what I mean? So there's an order there that can't be interrupted.
Okay.
And that order usually comes on a human level. Just looking at it on a human level, we've got all of these tiny microbes in our body. We're made of billions of them, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're the smaller forms of life. But what happens is when they start to build up and encroach upon the larger forces, so the microbes start to encroach upon the organs and the tissues, which are the larger structures of life, right? And then on the organism, right? They overwhelm our system, and that's how we start getting sick. We start developing diseases.
Yeah.
So the order is all about everybody needs to play their part.
Right.
You know, whether you're a microbe or you're the actual organism or the organs. Which, I mean, the organs is just another example of the harmony. It's probably why they call it organs, because just like in our body is the orchestra, and all of the organs have to play in a certain tune.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You know, that pleases the total sound of the orchestra, because if the stomach is off keel, you know, that messes the digestive system up, and digestive system back up, that's messing, the pancreas and all of these other organs up. So everybody has to play their part.
And all of this is a certain vibration. So vibrations have you mentioned energy earlier, but vibrations play a big part in it as well.
Yeah, well, everything, energy is vibration.
Yeah.
Right? All energy vibrates, And so we have reciprocity, and look at the human body. That our homeostasis, our internal environment, everything that emanates into the universe, there should be a fair share coming back. So whether it should be an equal put out and put in. And that's what oh gosh, why are these names slipping my mind? The positive and negative feedback system of our homeostasis system is all about. We give out too much, then that's there to correct us by putting back in what was given out, to bring it back into balance. Okay. So all of this is done to bring the system back into balance and to maintain that regularity. And the human body is just the perfect example of all of these principles.
Yeah.
Then you go to, of course, truth. Truth meaning that this is something that happens every time you see it. It's constant. And it's consistent, and it doesn't skip a beat, right? That's the truth. That's the truth of the universe. Gravity is the truth of the universe. Whether you believe in it or not, that truth is there. Yeah. Try to jump off a building and say, well, I'm going to defy the truth. That's the truth. Yeah. That you will end up seriously hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Then righteousness is another principle. And that's just the way energy and the spirit works. It's always moving towards a positive direction, and that's the righteousness of the universe. When we get sick, our body is always trying to heal itself. Yes. Leave it alone. Let your body heal it. But once, of course, we interfere with that, we'll take the antibiotics and all that. But isn't it
our ego that pushes us to interfere with what the body can do?
Right. Interrupting mind. Yeah. Yeah. So you leave it alone.
Most of the time, we don't want to even be sick for 2 days, even though might take 2 days for our body to repair itself.
And which is a good sign. When you're sick, it's good. That's just stuff trying to get out of you. Yeah. That shouldn't be in you. Yeah. And so it manifests into little rashes and stuff. Right. You don't put stuff on it. Don't put ointment on it to restrict it. Let it come out. Yeah. Let your skin breathe. That's what it wants to do. Yeah. It's the righteousness of the universe. Everything wants to be in its natural form.
Natural state. Yes. Yes.
So let it breathe. Let it do what it's supposed to do. Yeah. And then we cover all 7: harmony, order, reciprocity, balance. Everything in the universe is balanced. Just like in our bodies, we need an equal level of vitamins and minerals, right? Because we are minerals, right? So we need an equal level of these. Right. And just in the universe, everything has to have a balance to it. Positive, negative, male, female energies, right? We need an equal balance of these at all times. Yeah. Right, or else we'll just really throw the chemistry of the universe or our bodies off kill.
Right. So with that notion, then you believe in God and Goddess.
See, and that's the thing.
Yeah, I said it.
Now,
go ahead.
the concept of nature. Remember, like I said, nature has a feminine
you
form
were,
to it.
That's what you were referring. Yes.
Because in ancient Egypt, it was all about duality. They looked at everything in duality. Everything has a masculine, feminine. Even the creator had a masculine, feminine side to it. So to just play up on one end, would be, what would you say, blasphemy. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would be something that contradicts the order of the universe or the law of the universe. The law is everything has a masculine, feminine energy. And we're not looking at it, as sex-wise.
Right,
masculine, feminine just means one may be a little more passive than other energy. One may be a little more active. One is more linear. One is just more circular. You know what I mean? It's just a way of categorizing the two different polar opposite energies of the universe. So they looked at everything in a duality, in a dual form.
Right.
So when we talk about Ma'at, we're just talking about that feminine aspect of the creator that governs. And that's what women are. Women are the organizers. Women are the governors. And that's why in Kemet, the system was a matriarch.
Yeah.
There were no kings or quote unquote kings without the queen. You couldn't be a king if there was no woman at the throne. The woman was the throne. And she determined who takes the throne by who she married, what man she married. So,
in Gnostic Christianity, that form is Sophia, which is considered wisdom.
That's right.
Yeah. So I've been reading some very interesting books. I have so many books that I read because, I'm constantly reading and educating myself.
I need to get out of the habit of opening one. Say, let me put this down for a minute. Coming back the next day. That one looks kind of interesting on the top shelf. Let me open that one up.
But that's okay.
Opening the other.
But that's okay because I do a lot of that too. But that's okay because sometimes you find that they are related to each other without being related to each other.
That's true.
I don't believe in coincidences. So if I'm picking up 4 different books and I'm reading 4 different books, there's a reason for it.
Right. That's very true. Very true.
And that's how I see it because in the 4 different books that I'm reading right now, and it's about 4 or 5. They're all saying pretty much the same things. They're putting the pieces of this puzzle together.
Right.
See, I think life is a puzzle. A great big puzzle that we have to just
multi-themed, and it's the way to
find those pieces from someplace.
The way to connect those themes to each other. Right.
And they're not always right here. When you are doing a puzzle, you're not going to always find the pieces right next to each other. Right. And individuals are afraid to search. But, and when I like to talk to, when I'm talking to Christians, I like to say, because I know the Bible too. I know it well. That was my first book, so I know that.
Come on now.
So it's like, search and keep on searching until you find. In fact, the Bible tells you that if you search for me, I will let you find me. Now, and then what's interesting about this whole thing about searching is that when we go into Jesus' parables, and he's talking about the old lady who lost the coin, the parable of the lost coin. It's about searching. It's about searching in areas where you ain't dropped this coin.
Right.
But you don't stop, even though you got more coins. But you must find this one. So it's about searching every place, even in places where you ain't never been. And this is why I get so frustrated when I'm talking to other Christians. And it's like, I don't want to talk about nothing unless it's in the Bible. Well, then I can't have a conversation with you. Because you're not going to be able to find everything there.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
So I'm going to need you to open your mind a little bit. And I'm going to need you to work with me.
Look, I know I'm on the seat, but I just have to ask you, how difficult is it as a Christian who stepped outside and say maybe there's another approach to this that we haven't explored, we haven't exhausted? How difficult is it to try to I mean, you're not trying to get followers or anything.
No, I'm not trying to get followers.
But to be of an influence to people that would, allow them to kind of explore that option that you explored. Like, how difficult is it to do that?
That's a good question.
As someone that's still connected to
that's a very, very good question.
Because that's
It's a good question and it's a deep question. Because recently I had a conversation with my uncle that was going left, and I needed to just shut it down before it got worse.
Right.
And even conversations that I have with my mother are difficult right now because they have a notion that no one can move them from, and no one should.
They're brought in, right?
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I am not in the business of trying to get you to leave what you find to be your rock. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm not really interested in you trying to take me off of my journey too.
Right.
It was very, very hard for me because I grew up in the church. I grew up, my mother and father Baptist, and here's a very surprising thing: as spiritual as my mother is, she didn't care for churches either.
Oh, okay.
It was my father who was into the church and made us go to church. My mother wasn't interested in church. So when we got to the point where I followed my mom and stopped following my dad, we would try out different places. My mom had us being Jehovah's Witness. I was a Jehovah's Witness.
Y'all went through the gamut, huh? Y'all
right. You know, I went to holiness churches.
That's the black folk dance.
Exactly.
Like
there
we
you go.
Catholics, we Baptists, we go to Jehovah's, Seventh-day Adventists. We'll do it all before we
the whole thing.
We
went through the whole thing, you know. So, yes, I understand this. So when I decided, when I started to branch out on my own and decide, first of all, I was very curious about the Bible. I love the stories in the Bible. Maybe it's the writer in me. Maybe all of this is because I'm a writer. And so I look at stories differently than most people look at stories. But the one thing about the stories of the Bible, they always had such a deeper meaning to me. So when I'm talking about the Bible, I'm talking about what you were saying earlier about how those stories in the Bible actually have a relation to me and my body and everything that I go through. Like, I mentioned certain parts of the Bible.
So you read it as the words speaking directly to you, and not something that you should aspire to want to be, but something that I need to do, you know, for myself.
For instance, the story that I always constantly share with individuals is the Exodus story, where Moses we're gonna start at the Red Sea, and we're gonna walk it backwards a little bit, but we're gonna start at the Red Sea. Now you got Moses who have led all of these Israelites out of Egypt.
Right.
Okay. They got the Red Sea in front of them.
Right.
And they got Pharaoh's army chasing them down. Okay. Now you have all of these thousands of people, and they're all yelling at Moses, and they're saying, "Why you brought me here? Where to die? We could have just stayed in Egypt if we were not going." And this is the part of the story. Everybody knows that part, but this is the part of the story that captured my way of thinking. It was when, in that moment, that Moses turns to God and say, "What am I to do?" And the answer, "Why are you asking me?" Okay, so the thing about it is that people say, "Wait, hold up," But when you walk it backwards, and what I like to do with these stories is walk it backwards. Now let's go to the burning bush, where Moses first encounters God.
Okay.
And God gives him this assignment in the first place. He gives him every single thing. Moses says to him, "How am I supposed to do this? I have nothing." And what did God say to him? "What do you have in your hand?" What did Moses have in his hand? He had his staff in his hand, an ordinary staff that he had been using to tend to the sheep, right? But it was in the staff that God empowered Moses. Take this staff, and this is how you understand what I'm saying. And if you see all of the stories of Moses, you'll see him using his staff for everything.
And, well, you know, that's where we get the term "make lemonade out of lemons." You know what I mean? Because it's the thing that you don't understand, that you take for granted, that's in your possession, that has the capacity to overcome any problem that you're confronting.
Basui, that's my whole point.
You know
so
what I mean?
For me to read that story, I get that, what you just said. I have everything in me. God has already given me everything that I need to cross my Red Sea, to go head on with the pharaohs in my life. You understand what I'm saying? So I look at the stories differently than other people look at the stories. And they're not necessarily literal. I could care less if there was a real Moses. If you tell me there's no evidence of Moses being born, I could care less. It's not the Moses, it's the story.
And I think even
you know,
when people say that, it's still looking at it. See, and that's I don't think that's our fear of going past. And that's what spirituality is. Spirituality is the ability to transcend your senses. You know, the things that are tangible to you, and the ability to look at what's behind what your senses take in. You know, and that's when you reach the level of, all right, really get into something here in life. You know, because now I understand the subtle meaning of life. And the subtle meaning is the messages that are behind the characters.
The message behind,
actually being relayed to you.
Yes.
Yeah. So whether we're talking about something physical, something that existed or not, that's not.
And we're fighting over whether or not there was really a Jesus, whether or not there was really a Moses, whether or not there was really a Abraham. Why don't you look at the stories that's
telling us what.
You know what I'm saying? Why don't we take the message from the story? Why don't we apply that message to our life? Why don't we see if we could do those things?
That's right.
Because if you're not doing any of that, to me, you're being a hypocrite. When you tell me that the Bible says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, but then I'm sitting up here talking about all the things I can't do, well, that's a contradiction of what the scriptures say I can do, right?
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
So it's like the Apostle James who said, you show me your faith without works, and I'll show you my works because of my faith. So it's like we can take these stories, we can apply them to our life, we can look at these things that are being said, and we can see on the higher level how we can use it to manifest something great inside of ourselves. Or we can sit here and argue about whether or not there really was a flood. Because there's a flood in every single mythological story.
Look, I'm past the arguing, you know, folks.
I don't argue with folks.
I Jesus was black or not. I'm like, look.
I don't care.
We can argue about that for 8 hours here. You know what I mean? Whether we can go through the details.
Exactly.
And he said the hair
You're
was
missing
a wool and
the point.
Brass and, well, yeah.
And if I can't have a conversation with you, if my conversation has got to be about something very literal that you're trying to prove, I can't talk to you at that point.
It's on a mundane level.
I can't. My brain don't want to go back down there. You follow what I'm saying? My brain can't take it anymore.
Right.
I need to be someplace else, and I need to have a conversation with somebody who's willing to take it someplace else.
That's what I was saying before when I said that spirituality is one of the most emboldening things. The boldest thing that you can do is to practice spirituality when you're surrounded by people who don't look at life past the physical reality, because spirituality forces you to look behind that. And so you're always looked at as an oddball or somebody who's doing something that just can't be conceived. Like, what are you doing here?
Exactly.
You know, what is it that you're trying to do? I'm still getting questions. I'm still getting looked at from not really family members. They're coming along. But even, you know, friends with the vegan diet, you know, they're looking at me. They're like, why? You know what I mean? You're gonna die anyway. Look, the whole "you gonna die anyway" thing. We can get into that later. But
of course we're gonna die anyway. We all know that.
Right. But the reason for living for something else, you know, you're not. What is the saying? I don't eat to be happy. I don't eat to live. I live to eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really what that is. You're eating to live. But the live is not the physical life. The live is spirit. You're eating so spirit can live. Yeah. You want to be a vessel. So you want to make sure your body is clean. Right? Your channels are open. So what's inside of you can now have a relationship with the outer world. You know, with that outer subtle world.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about the spiritual side of vegan living. I want to be a vegan. I have to first try to be a vegetarian, because there's a difference between being a vegetarian and being a vegan. You want to give us a little insight on what the difference is, because a lot of people don't know what the difference is.
Well, you know, I don't even know how full-fledged I am into it. I mean, I know I do raw foods most of the time. Just like right now, we're about to get some rice and beans. Am I correct? We're about to there are things that are going to be, you know, because, you know, you have your raw foodists who believe that everything just straight up be raw. You know, if it's not live, it's not, you know, that's not something that's going in my body.
I heard that before, eat live foods.
Right.
Which would be, to me, like raw vegetables. I mean, that's the only thing that you can eat that's live, right? Is raw vegetables.
Only thing, right. But there are certain greens that if you steam lightly, And if you do actually cook lightly, you can actually increase the potency.
Okay.
You know, like their mineral content. So there are those that you can do that with. But, you know, throughout the main spectrum, of course, you know, the live food is the ones that you're not heating up and cooking. Mm-hmm. So, I mean...
But that doesn't really leave you with much options, though. Right? Well, I don't know. I'm saying this is why I'm finding it hard. Because how many days can I eat a salad? Yeah. And that's when I first started with trying to be a vegetarian. I know, right?
You don't eat salad? Okay.
We have another guest in our studio. We're gonna talk to her a little bit later as we talk about other things. And she's just here. She's like my apprentice right now. Uh-huh. She might eventually be my co-host. We're gonna see. Right. But she's here taking notes and listening. Miss Kalia. That's right. What's your last name? Lafayette. Okay, we're going to get back to
one day that chair is going to be vacant and going to need to be filled.
Exactly. She's my little trainer right now. She's in training now. That's it. But I was saying that I tried to be, and I'm not going to say tried as if I'm not still trying, because I moved to more of a plant-based, where, what's the difference? Well, I do eat beans, like you said, and rice. I do eat the, I try not to eat that much meat, but I'm still eating fish, you know. So... Every now and then, I have my chicken sandwich. Okay. So I'm not true.
Hey, I'm not looking at you with a side eye. Yes, you are.
You're looking at me with a side eye of judgment. No. But okay, I know that, and I'm really trying very, very hard. Right. I'm trying for.
It's a process. You know what I mean? Whether it's you want to say it's slow or fast, it's a process.
Yes, but the thing about it is, it has to be for health reasons, as far as I'm concerned, because I need to control my cholesterol. I need to control my high blood pressure. I need to make sure I'm like borderline diabetic. So these are all things that are going to help me. Right. I want to help myself. And see, that's just it. We want to help ourselves, but yet we still keep putting poison in our body. And a lot of people, they can call you out when you're an alcoholic. They can call you out when you're a drug addict, but they don't seem to understand that food can be a drug too, and it can be just as dangerous. Yeah. So it's like, how do we
But I mean, well, look at the paradigm shift. You know, that the alcoholic and the drug addict, you know, these would be the exceptions to the rule. Everybody's not alcoholic, everybody's not a drug addict. But when we're living around people where everybody's eating meat, everybody's eating white sugar, white flour, milk, you know, I mean, you know, you're now the exception to the rule where they're looking at you as the drug.
It's like, okay, you're really not going to, you're really not going to eat that.
We're bought in, what's wrong with you?
Exactly. I mean, I've gotten off some things, like I don't drink milk. Now I moved to almond milk. Right. I've eliminated the white sugar that I put in my food, because obviously sugar is in everything. I don't know what sugar is in.
Right. And that's the main thing. Look, the best thing you can do is prepare your own.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because we have no idea what these people out here are putting in.
Exactly.
And I think Kiana sent me a video of this sister. She was preparing a soul food meal. Mm-hmm. And she got to the part where she was decorating up the yams. You know, she was preparing the yams. And I saw this. I said, I'm not eating yams again. I don't care who shoves it in front of my face. I don't care if they say it's vegan. Okay. It's just what she's doing. She did to it.
Well, what'd she do to the yams?
She took the 5-pound diamond sugar, you know, and she just started pouring away on top of it, just pouring it. I don't know if she poured the whole 5-pound bag, but she was just dumping the sugar on the yams. And I'm like, if this is the way that candy yams are always being made, no.
Unfortunately, that is the recipe for candy.
I know it included lots of sugar, but I saw that video. I said, no.
What I do now is I don't even. Yams are too sweet for me. Candy yams like that now. I will buy the regular sweet potatoes or the yams and just throw it in the oven.
Sweet,
they're naturally sweet. The only thing I put on top of it, though, is a little cinnamon. I will still sprinkle a little cinnamon on it. Cinnamon, you know. But yeah, you can. Sweet potatoes and yams are naturally sweet. Right. Because all that there is sugars start pouring out of it when you take it out of the oven. I made one for myself yesterday, and I had, on the aluminum foil that I had underneath it was all of the sugars that fell down from out of the sweet potato. And I said to myself, wow, look at all this syrup. Look at all this sugary syrup that came out of this sweet potato. So there's really no reason for you to put more sugar in. But that's the common recipe.
And that's the weird irony, is that you don't understand how sweet the food is until you eat it raw.
Yeah.
You know, because now you're getting into how naturally sweet it was. And you're like, this doesn't need any.
It doesn't need
sugar.
any
You know, like
sugar.
I tell you, with my what I do with the seeds and nuts.
Yeah.
You know, the dehydrating.
Yes.
So I dehydrate a lot of fruits a lot. And I see the way it's sold in the stores, they would have dehydrated pineapples, dehydrated green apples, and they would just bury it in tons of sugar.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I'm eating a dehydrated pineapple that I made. I'm like, wait a minute. Why does this need sugar on top of it?
That's right.
Like, first of all, when you dehydrate it, it brings the sugar to the
Brings
top.
it
You know
to-
what I
yes,
mean? So
yes.
it intensifies the sugar taste. So, I mean, this sugar craze that we're in, and you touched upon it, it is a drug. You know, it is a
Because
drug.
people are addicted to it.
Right.
People are addicted to sugar. You know, I drink my coffee now black with no cream, no sugar. Because when I stopped drinking milk, that means I couldn't put it in my coffee. When I stopped using sugar, that means I couldn't put it in my coffee. So I had to, I now pour myself a cup of black coffee. And that's what I, drink, black coffee.
Yeah.
Because when you make these decisions that you're not going to have certain things, then you realize how it's in everything. Wow, if I can't drink milk, okay, I'm not having cereal, but I can't even put milk in my cereal. I mean, in my coffee right now. Oh, I'm not using sugar. Oh, I can't even put sugar in my coffee right now. So now you have to what? You have to just drink your coffee black. So it's a process, like you said.
It is, and that's the main thing to understand. And like you said with the fish was, I know before I made the total change, that's what I went to. You know, I left the meat alone, but I stayed on fish for about a year.
Yeah.
And fish is a great transition food, you know, especially with your proteins. And, But I know women, you have to watch the mercury content. But you know, this is what actually changed, what got me to change. I changed in 2010. I wanted to do something special for Black History Month. And that was around the time where I had acid reflux. I had it bad. I mean, I was waking up in the morning, because what I would do, I would wake up in the morning, I would eat a hamburger, I would eat steak, I would drink soda. You know, that was my breakfast, you know. It catches up to you.
Yeah.
And I had acid reflux bad. You know, and when you really have it bad, you throw up until you can't throw up anymore, and you still want to throw up. You know, it's that. You know, it's that those kind of symptoms that it gives you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Well,
you know, you have to let it subside.
Yes. I'm grateful that I've been off soda for almost 15 years.
Oh, okay.
I'm grateful for that. That was my first thing that was the first thing I did for myself that I felt was necessary, because like I said, I've always been borderline diabetic. I got rid of the soda first. That was the first thing that I got out of my life.
Right. Yeah, that's that high.
But then I was still
corn
drinking the
syrup
juices,
right
and then
to
I
the
had to get rid
bloodstream.
of that. Because
Right.
you went from soda to drinking
juice.
lemonade and iced tea. You're still getting the sugar content, you know what I'm saying? So then you had to wean yourself off of that. So I've weaned myself off of all of that. I just drink water and wine. Water and wine. Wine.
And the two things that don't get digested, right? They just go straight through the system.
And coffee. Those are my three drinks of choice right there. But so I'm working on it, and all of it is spiritual. So even though this is we're talking about a spiritual topic, this is because anytime you're talking about cleansing the temple that houses the Holy Spirit, then it's a spiritual thing.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, you're not doing it for any external satisfaction or
So it's not to feed the ego.
It's not to feed the ego. Exactly, literally, right?
Right.
The ego don't want broccoli, you know.
Exactly.
The ego wants that steak. But
Exactly.
and that's what we need to understand. Eating is spiritual.
Yes.
You know, and that's what, even back in the day when they sacrificed animals, they said, well, they used to sacrifice animals and eat them in, you know, Kemet or whatever, West Africa. But
Yeah.
you understand. First of all, this wasn't a regular thing. You know, this wasn't their meal. You know what I mean? And we're talking about a time when animals were way more pure than they are now. You know, they're not full of drugs.
Yeah.
You know, they're not full of the things that we do to give them shelf life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're talking about a clean vessel.
Yeah.
You know, that we're actually ingesting.
And also, shame on us for the way animals are treated. When we were supposed to be, when I say we, I'm talking mankind, supposed to have dominion over these animals. We're supposed to care for them and take care of the earth. We've come such a long way from where creation was supposed to be. We can talk about this for a long time, but we're not. We're going to stop right here for this episode. But I'm gonna have you come back as well as other people, so we can continue to have a conversation on spirituality. Because I plan on letting this be like a 3-month thing. So January, February, March, and then I'm going to move on to relationship. Because I love to talk about relationships, because it's really, to me, it's all connected.
Definitely,
it's all connected.
And look, in our community, relationships need to be on the forefront.
It needs to be
of our minds, because we in some relationship. That's what's driving the community.
Exactly. So we're gonna talk about that.
Healthy relationships.
Yes. So I'm gonna bring all that back. So I'm Dr. Caroline Bethia Jones, and my guest today is Mr. Basui. Say your last name for me again.
Basui Mshu Nikaamen.
Mshu Nika.
So Mshu would be the middle name.
Okay, so Mshu,
or what's considered the middle name, and Nikaamen.
Nikaamen. Before we say goodbye, can you explain your name? Because you changed your name. This is the name you chose for yourself.
The name I chose for myself.
So can you tell?
Well, the name was given to. Well, the name wasn't given to me. I chose the name, but I had a spiritual reading done.
Okay.
To find out what my life mission was.
Okay.
And I would advise everybody to go get a spiritual reading done. And that consists of your natal chart, definitely looking at your natal chart, which is something we need to talk about.
Yes, we do. I want to talk about that, because I have my natal chart.
I'm coming with my notes next time, and my natal chart.
Yes.
So it consists of a series of different divinations, right? Well, it's one divination, but different variables that go into the divination. So one is the natal chart, another is casting of cowrie shells, another you're using tarot cards or tarot style cards. And it was revealed to me that my life mission is supposed to be one of a teacher, one who guides people, and of a leader, actually. So when they did my natal chart, the signs that popped up the most were the signs of Gemini and Aries.
Okay.
Aries. Now, in Kemetic spirituality, Gemini, the prototype of Gemini was Shu, the Necharu Shu, and Shu. I won't say Shu. Well, Shu and Tefnu, the Necharu, because Gemini are the twins. So Shu and Tefnu, they were the consorts. And the prototype for Aries was Amen. So hence, where I get Mshu Nikaamen.
Right.
And so I had to pick a name that resonated with my life mission and with the signs that popped up the most in my natal chart.
Okay.
And so he opened up a book of names that meant one who teaches and instructs. And Basui is one that stuck out to me. Okay. So I picked Basui. I like the numerology on the name. It has a number 4 numerology, which kind of coincides with. Well, look, we'll get into numerology.
Yes. So actually, I want us to come back and have that conversation. Okay. Again, we're going to talk about natal charts. We're going to talk about astronomy. We're going to talk about a few things, because for a long, long time, talking about astronomy and Christianity just was not coming together. You cannot.
People,
you cannot.
Folks in the box will run.
Exactly. It is forbidden.
Right.
But we know it to be useful, because even in ancient times they followed the planets. That is how they understood what this world was about. Yeah. And for us to be ignorant of it today is just plain ignorant. It's just plain ignorant. That's right. And I don't really have any intention of being ignorant. So we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about that.
Well,
Okay.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Dr. J, for
All
having
right.
me here.
All right. So this is Real Talk with Real People, and we're going to be back next month when we're going to talk about natal charts. And if you would like to have your natal chart done, you're going to need to know the time you were born.
That's right.
Not only just your birthday year. You're going to need to know what time, right? It has to be within an hour. Is that correct? It has to be within an hour.
Right.
Because, the moons and stuff, the planets and stuff change every hour or something like that. Right. Is that how that goes?
They change. I mean, especially the moon. The moon is flying through through the cosmos. Yeah. So you want to capture that in its exact moment.
All right. So in order to get an accurate reading, you have to know your exact time of birth.
Know your exact time of birth. And of course the place.
All right, so that's going to be a discussion for next time. So see you later, and we'll talk to you soon.